Welcome, everyone, to the HSP and Neurodivergent podcast. I'm Julie Bjelland, and we are recording live in the sensitive empowerment community. And we are here with
Willow. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for having me once again.
I always like your the way you say your name. Uh, so there's so many different things to talk about today. I'm excited. I wanted to bring in. I love the concept that we were doing where we were talking about our challenges and our wins, and I also thought it might be fun to bring in some conversations about some of the comments that we got about last week's episode too, and I think it can kind of relate. Um, I want to say I just appreciate so much when you all write in and talk about how an episode has impacted you, how it supported you in some way. And so I thought I would share a couple of those things. What do you think, Willow?
Sounds great.
um, so someone wrote in and said that they loved hearing me talk about my joy about getting a camera, and really what that meant for them was that they wrote, remembering the need to find joy. You helped us remember that we are allowed to and actually need to find joy no matter what else is happening. So this person was really struggling with the suffering and destruction from climate change and the hurricanes that happened and just the suffering going on in the world. And that they were saying joy is absolutely encouraged and can be found in small things. So I love that by talking about, because I was talking about my grief and how I was intentionally, working to find moments of joy. And I really loved that comment because actually we had a lot of comments like that where it was like, oh yeah, I need to intentionally find some joy. When we're in a really hard season or we're in a really stressful experience going on, that is something that helps us in so many ways, right, Willow?
Mm. Yes, I completely agree. I think there's actually a very interesting ability that we have where we can come present in the moment and let go and find our place of joy quite literally when anything is happening, if we allow ourselves to do that. Which doesn't mean to say necessarily that we're condoning what's going on, or we're not acknowledging our needs, or for any other reason aside from the fact that there is always a place of presence and calm in the moment. They say the only time that you should be panicking is if you're bleeding or you can't breathe. Aside from that, there is always an opportunity for us to find that place of joy, which I think can be found in the little things, just in those moments where we can center ourselves and bring ourselves back. And I really think that helps to break us out of the habit of catastrophizing and, feeding anxiety, over worrying, if we learn that and trust that ability that we have, I think.
Yeah, it helps us be more resilient. It helps us continue the work that we want to do in the world. I heard a wonderful interview between Anderson Cooper and Whoopi Goldberg, and they were both talking about the loss of their mother. And I was crying through the episode because they were both crying too. And Whoopi said something about finding light in the tunnel, and how important that is, that we find light when we feel like we're in a dark tunnel, when we're in a dark space. And someone else shared, I wanted to say, like, I really loved getting to hear from others. Even right before we started recording, we were talking about someone else that understands the grief of losing a mother. And really this relates to anybody that's experienced grief or is just experiencing a really hard season of life. So this person wrote, I just wanted to tell you how much you helped me with your share around your own grief. You shared so beautifully with true honesty and grace. You made me feel like I can and will navigate my own losses, and I will be okay. I can remove the judgments. The intensity doesn't last to this degree forever. Thank you, Julie. I just wanted to reach through the screen and give you the biggest embrace. So, I mean, what a beautiful thing. That was really touching to me too. And
Yeah.
really touching what we talked about right before recording, this sense of, you know, I think that, and I actually had a lot of people write to me, Willow, saying that they want me to talk more about it, that we don't normalize grief enough, that it's an experience that all of us have experienced or will experience. And it's a part of our human experience in the world. And so I really liked that we heard from a lot of people that it was helpful that I talked about it. And I do want to talk more about it because it is my current experience. And I also wanted to say, because I know that when we talk about things, it helps validate it for others. And I wanted to share that, you know, especially the first few weeks of losing my mother, I was in, oh my gosh, how it affected me, Willow, was like, it affected me physically as well. And I could barely walk down the stairs. I was in a lot of body pain. I'm sure I was having a lot of inflammation in my body. I was also in just this haze. Like I felt like I could just accidentally walk in front of a car kind of haze. And my son was with me, and I would say to him, can you just kind of watch out for me a little bit, like so that I don't just walk in front of a car accidentally? Because I was just in a haze. I could not make decisions. We went out to eat. I would just be like, I cannot even make a decision about where to eat. I can't even look at the menu. I can't decide what to eat. I was like, just take me to a restaurant, order food, put it in front of me, and then I'll eat it. It was like, I want to validate some of this for others who have been in these kinds of places, because it's incredibly difficult. And I'm past that part, but I'm still in other parts of grief. Like part of my win for today is sharing that I'm noticing that my body is getting stronger again. And I'm just like so grateful about that I'm starting to get, my health is getting better. My strength is getting better. I would also go with my son he was learning surfing, or he is learning surfing. So every time he would go to the beach, I would go with him. And like even walking from the beach up the hill back to the car, I was like, I could barely make it up the hill. Like my body was so weak, Willow. And that is often a part of grief for many of us. And it isn't something that we really talk about that much. And you know, I had some incredibly dark days. I had days where I felt like I was going to be in that space. Like that's just where I was going to be. I wasn't going to be able to get out of it. And so it reminds me a lot of like, so I've been working on that feeling of like, I can be in that kind of intensity and I can drop into it still sometimes, but it's like I know that it isn't going to last forever, that intensity that I experience. And that's been a gift, just knowing that. It reminds me of like, I was bodyboarding one time many months ago, and I hit the wave wrong, and the board flipped. So I flipped, and I was like tumbling in the wave. And that has happened to me before. And I remember before I was like absolutely terrified to be tumbling like this and not knowing what's going to happen. But I actually remember, Willow, having a moment while I was tumbling that was like, okay, this is really hard right now, but you are eventually going to be okay. Like I remember thinking that while I was tumbling. So it's almost like I'm now reminding myself of that within grief.
Yeah, wow. Yes, I think that is I think that is a really interesting way of processing these pieces. You know, considering these pieces. It is such a difficult feeling to experience, and you're right, it does feel like it's going to go on forever and we're never going to be released from it. And you know, it's tough for us because we do feel so deeply and we process so deeply, and you know, we're trying to understand ourselves more, we're trying to make sense of things. And I think, you know, that that depth of processing along with the feeling, it is a really difficult place for us to process and experience. But ultimately, I think that's a really good analogy. The waves piece is that we are going to come out the other side of it, and like we were talking about in the previous episode, is we're really out of control of the way in which or when the feelings are coming and how they're going to come. We just have to sort of be in it and just allow it to do its thing within our bodies and trust that our bodies know what they're doing, I think.
Yes.
And yeah, and I mean, I'm just thinking back to my own sort of experiences of that, and the mind really doesn't help us in those periods. The mind makes it much worse than it really is, and that, I think, is that's the bit that's difficult to manage. But the actual process of what our body's doing, it knows what it's doing, and we are going to grow and evolve. Everything that we go through has this higher purpose, and we come out the other side with more awareness about ourselves, more love in our hearts, and I think it's all ultimately good in the end, but it's just trusting.
Yeah, it's good, and and it's just hard. There's some parts that are just so hard, but you're right about how it just kind of pops in. I was just talking about this, that like I had, well, part of my win I want to share is like how much fun I had with my camera last weekend.
Oh,
Like
yes. Good.
it was my first time with an actual professional camera, and I had so much fun. I had joy. I actually felt joy. And it was a reminder of, wow, I could still feel that way. Like there were parts during the grief where I was like, okay, that's it. I'm not going to enjoy the rest of my life. Like I really believed that for a little while. It's
Right,
like,
right.
okay, I'm not going to enjoy anything anymore. Um, and to have that, the joy that I felt taking those photos and practicing and just like experiencing different, all of it was just, I was so wonderful. Like I was like, wow, I actually can feel that again. And I had just hours. I spent like the entire day on Saturday, and I had so many birds to choose from right off my patio because I live on a lagoon that's near wetlands, and there were so many birds that came by, and it was really fun. And then I was saying I went to take a bath later that day, and I suddenly got these images of my mom, and I just started crying, just out of nowhere. Boom, hit me hard. But it was also like, okay, I experienced, so it was different than before because I was like, okay, I'm experiencing this part is really, really hard. But I also like looking forward to going back out with my camera. So it's almost like,
Yeah.
this is what I talk about. These reminders of joy are so important to us because it does help us get through the really hard stuff. Even like politically, there's just so many signs up and stuff right now. And I feel traumatized when I see certain signs up. And it's like, I know so many people are experiencing that, and just many different things that are going on. And I'm like, wow, we have got to, I think it's this, you got to think about these tunnels going into us. And one tunnel is all the hard stuff. It's the stuff that's just really hard, and especially as a sensitive person. And we have got to fill up intentionally the tunnel of things that bring us joy, those little things that support us. And when that joy tank, I've called it the positivity tank before, when we can fill that one up a little more, it supports the part of us that are experiencing all those really hard things. If my tank is empty, if my positive joy tank is empty, and I experience and my total stress and grief tank is full, that is when I'm not okay. That's when I'm just not okay. So I have got to do those little things that fill that up for me. And and whatever that is for you, it can be anything that just gives you, even if it's just a fleeting moment of this feels good. this feels good. I'm gonna soak this in. I washed my sheets last night, Willow, and I was like, oh, this feels so good. I love fresh sheets, the feeling of fresh sheets. I'm like,
Yeah.
be mindful about those moments, right? We had to remember to be mindful about those moments.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Gosh, I think it's, I was kind of thinking about this earlier. You know, life is not easy. There's no doubt about that. But I think in our hearts, we all know that there is good here that we are all fighting for. And that at the essence of life, there is joy and there is something really special. And I think we sense that and we know that at a deep level. And I think we also know that we are moving forwards in the world. We are making progress. Sometimes we go backwards, sometimes things go wrong, of course. But I think ultimately we are actually doing well in our evolution. And when it comes to our own experience, I think we always have a choice to know that within the deepest part of us, there is something beautiful and joyous that is connected to something greater that is always there. And we can fill that up with joyous experiences and just recognizing the profound beauty and simplicity in life. And we are going to have to go through difficult times. There's no way around that. There's going to be challenges that are coming. In all of our lives, there are challenges coming, and I think there is an opportunity to choose how we support ourselves through those challenges, and to recognize that we can learn to let go when the time is right. When we've been through enough, and we've got the healing, and things have changed, and we can allow ourselves to let go and to move on again, and maintaining that kind of that equilibrium of joy underneath that really is the truth of all things, I think.
Yeah, it's important to be mindful about it, I think, because it's easy to have those things just kind of slip off, the feel good things just slip off. Like
Yeah.
I took some photos of the ripples in the water, and it was just like, wow, I just love these photos, like the way that the water looks. It's like, okay, soak that in, soak that in. That feels really good. And Becca mentioned something before we started recording that I think is a great thing to also bring in as a reminder is about how hard it is on us when we judge our emotions. And that I was saying, like, many of us as deep feelers in the world have received messages as children way back then with our child's brain that there's something wrong with how we experience things. So I just pick for a moment, just picture your just sweet little child self experiencing something really hard. and and not only are we not getting supported during that moment, but we're also getting messages. What is wrong with you? Why are you reacting that way? Get over it. Get a thicker skin. Why are you so sensitive? And now with a child's brain, we have learned to judge what we were feeling. So that is something that is just such a huge piece of this. Like I feel that too. Like I've noticed a difference in my experience now, whereas I'm able to be more supportive than judgmental. And that is that 1,000-pound weight that you take off of the emotion so that you can handle the emotion that you're experiencing. I used to have a lot of panic about just how much I would feel things so strongly. And so being able to support myself now and take away that judgment. And, in the community, we get to really normalize and validate each other's experience. And I think that's such a healing journey to do that. Like, even if you have one person to do that with, to be like, that's just going to accept you as you are and not give you that judgment, but just be like, yeah, this is really hard. And I've been thinking, Willow, too, like maybe in some future podcasts, we might have some conversations around more inner child work, like in terms of really practicing loving ourselves in the way that a loving mother would love us. Whether we had that or not in our lives, but that we give that to ourselves, that we are comforting, supporting, nurturing, just checking in a loving way. Like, I know this is really hard right now, and it makes sense that you're crying. It makes sense that this is really hard. And I want you to know I'm here for you. I'm going to help you get through this. You are not alone. You are supported. And that we are giving ourselves that kind of inner child love, and start practicing that now if you haven't done it before, because it is going to help you through the hard stuff.
Mm.
How about you, Willow? Have you done much of that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a real area of expertise that you have actually. I think your relationship, I've learned a lot from you in terms of your relationship with your inner child. And that has been it has been groundbreaking for me to I think the first piece that really made a difference for me was the piece you just described was um, feeling that there's something going on. I can feel some kind of resistance, or I'm upset about something, and just taking the moment to just stop and asking myself, what is it that I actually need to acknowledge right now, and what's my need around this right now? And it's such a simple process, but instantly it's like this relief happens, and there's that inner child's like, thank you for noticing. All I needed, I just needed, I don't, I just needed a little bit of acknowledgement. I just needed to be noticed and seen, and that has been that's such a helpful process. You know, it's not even that we necessarily need a solution to whatever it is that's going on. It's just acknowledgement that there is something there just the feeling is just acknowledged, which is absolutely the pathway to healing. It's when we have that awareness of something, that's when the energy shifts. So that bit for me has been
Yeah, it's like being seen. I mean, that's a powerful thing, to be seen. That we
yeah.
can give ourselves that feeling that we are being seen and our inner child is being seen. I always talk about it for people to, because some people are like, I don't understand inner child stuff, but it's like, if you see those children tugging on their parents, like, trying to get attention, and they're being ignored, versus, we get down to their level, eye to eye, tell me what's happening, what do you need? And, I'm listening and I'm here for you. That is, you're right. It isn't always about fixing. It is about being seen and being, you know, just, I mean, that's a powerful thing, to be seen. That's what we all want and need. Like, really, we all need
Yeah, we do. I think it's especially important for us as HSPs because I think we're so used to hiding ourselves because we know that we're different, because of that conditioning. So I think it's really important for us to acknowledge the importance of being seen. Because, I mean, through all the wonderful conversations that I've been able to have over the years with HSPs, the biggest breakthrough is when I ask people the questions, tell me about your reality, tell me about your experience of the world. And for 90% of the people, it's the first time they've ever talked about that, the
that.
depth to what they're seeing, and what they're feeling about and what they deeply care about and the intricacies of how they're processing, it's and that moment of just allowing someone to be seen in that truth of their self, in the truth of their experience I mean, for me too, it was one of the greatest gifts that I ever received. And I think we can give ourselves that as HSPs on a regular basis, just to stop and acknowledge how we're feeling, what's happening, what we're seeing, what we care about, what we're worried about, and just give ourselves that reflection.
Yeah, that's so life changing when we do that. It really is.
Yeah.
And I want to get into your wins and challenges too. But I want to name one more thing, because I think a lot of people might relate to this. So I had some difficult days this week for a number of reasons. It was like, for one, was a neighbor is doing drilling in their patio, and it was like no matter what noise canceling headphones I put in, I mean, it was, our neighbors were way too close here. I love being on the water, but I don't think I can handle the neighbors being that close. And the noise
Right.
was, wow, Willow, it was getting me a lot. So I have a lot of noise sensitivity. And what I've been learning by working with a lot of sensitive and now a lot of autistic people is that most of us have, like, if you have a really intense sensory experience that is like more intense than you've seen other people have, look into the autism quiz that I have. It's free on my website because I know a lot of listeners are actually autistic and don't know it yet. So that's part of my goal, is to help educate that. But one way I wanted to describe it, Willow, it was like, if you can imagine that we're just putting kind of like these bricks on top of us, and the bricks just get heavier and heavier. So I already had a mountain of bricks on me with grief. And then I added these bricks with this drilling that I just could not get away from. And it was
Right.
many days worth. So it wasn't like I could just leave for the day. It was many days worth, still happening. Um, and I was thinking, so I had this moment where I was like, I was feeling so irritable. And then I almost started crying. And I was like, okay,
Right.
sensory overload, that's what this is.
Yeah.
And in my past, before I understood, really the autism piece, I maybe would have kept on pushing myself to do what I was, working or whatever I was trying to do or get done. Instead, I was like, oh my gosh, we've got to be alone. I've got to take care of myself. So I took a really soothing bath, got under my weighted blanket, and was just aware that I needed to take care of myself. And in the past, if I would have kept pushing through, that's when the meltdown occurs, or that's when you
Yeah.
start an argument with someone, or you do something that you regret later. I mean, it's
Going off and shutting the power off to the town.
yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I wanted to say that brick for brick thing it's really powerful to understand about ourselves, and then it brought in this experience, Willow, where I got incredibly sad about like the past and not knowing this about myself, not understanding this about myself. So I was like rewinding the tape in past relationships, friendships, whatever it was that where that I had meltdowns or outbursts or whatever it was because of sensory overload, not knowing what that was. And then I
Yeah.
just got so sad that I didn't have that information when I would have needed it all those years. You're
Yeah.
nodding.
I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, and this is really important to know this. It took me time to figure this out as well. You described it really well. There's almost like a threshold of data that can be taken on in one go. So I've noticed, like, if I'm working and then something happens, like I'm living close to a farm here where I am in Montenegro, and here they use dogs as to guard various areas of the farm, and it's kind of like a big a big meadow here, and the dogs are kind of dotted around various parts of it. So if one of them goes off, then they all start going off, and I realized, like, if it depends on kind of what I'm doing. So if the dog is barking, but I have enough space in my awareness where I'm focusing on what I'm doing, and then maybe there's something I know because there's a deadline that needs to happen, and I might be able to focus on one other thing, like, I need to go and get this errand done. I need to process what's doing. That's about as much as can go on. But then if I'm tired or my back aches or whatever it is, something else, then I can't hold all that. Like and that's when that that's and I've noticed when I can feel that building that there's too much, and then I have to stop what I'm doing. But rather than, as you say, rather than saying, oh, there's something wrong with me, why can't I integrate all of those pieces? I've learned that I actually need to switch one of them off, like whether I'm focusing on the work or I need to, get away from wherever I am if there's a noise. But it is something that it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. There's just a threshold that we have. There's only so much we can hold of sensory information, and we have to honor that.
Yes, I was cracking up because I love the way you explained it, and I was relating to it too. I know a lot of you listening are relating to that too. It's true. And if we keep pushing ourselves past that threshold, that's when we get burnout.
Right. Yeah.
And then the burnout takes a long time to recover from. So I was reading something about, I should have wrote this down for the quote to be right, but it was kind of something like, you know how they say, oh, just do your best. For neurodivergence, for sensitive and neurodivergent people, it's important to add a piece to that, doing your best doesn't mean pushing yourself past your mental and physical limits or sensory limits, actually. So we have to include, when we say doing our best, because I think so many of us as sensitive and neurodivergent people have been accustomed and socialized to push past those thresholds. And then there's the cycle of constant burnout that happens. So it's important to understand that we can't push ourselves past those. So if we're doing our best, that means doing our best while also keeping our mental health, physical health, sensory health okay.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, absolutely. If I go into like kind of mad zone where, I'm twitching because I'm just trying to push through and kind of like, it's just whatever happens, I'm going to finish this email or whatever it is with this clattering, onslaught happening, then there's no productivity there. I'm no longer connected to anything helpful. I'm just kind of in madness, really. And I think I think for us, we've got to we have to reconnect. We've got to realign again. And I found that, yes, of course, sometimes, no matter what we put on our heads, we can't get rid of the noise, especially if there's a mild vibration, then we're, but if we haven't got that, I found that just meditating, I mean, I know that doesn't work for all of us, but for me, I've learned this process where I just allow everything to flush all the way down to the core of me, like to my seat. And I hold my awareness down there, and that resets my whole system. And I've learned to do that in like 10 minutes. So I can just go and sit, and then I can come back, and then my system is aligned. So it's almost like I'm kind of taking all of that kind of clattered madness energy and just letting it sink down into the core of me, and I hold it there and breathe it down there, and that resets me. So I think whatever that process is, whether it's going into nature or eating or listening to something or making ourselves laugh, whatever it is, I think we have to shift state. Like getting in the sea, for instance, will shift that for me as well. I think we have to do something. Trying to navigate the insanity of overwhelm is not serving anybody.
Yeah, so true. If I do what I call my processing time before I do meditation. Well, it depends. Sometimes I'll do one before the other, but the point is that it's silent. It's not taking anything else in, because honestly, many people were very conditioned to, oh, I have time, I'm going to start scrolling social media, or I'm going to do things, my to-do list or whatever, that there isn't actually a lot of time where you're really doing nothing these days, unless you're intentional about it. And if I skip that time, oh my gosh, Willow, I notice such a buildup. And then I start getting agitation, anxiety. I start getting these feelings like my motor is running too fast and I can't. It's just a horrible feeling, actually. So every day I do that, and I just lay on my yoga mat and totally take in nothing. So I'm processing. Yeah. I always talk about the 3 stages that we need to do: processing, rest, and restoration. Most people don't do those 3 stages intentionally. you might think, oh, I'm resting by scrolling social media, but that's not resting. Your brain is still taking in information. You're not resting while you're watching a show or reading a book or researching. I know a lot of us as autistic people are big researchers. We love learning. And it's very easy to just constantly learn and have things be going in all the time. But that's when that buildup happens. And we just have to make sure we're sort of dumping out that container. I think of it as like a container. It's like if that container is constantly full, then any small thing that happens, it starts to make it overflow. So, and that's when we can feel like we're getting, we're being reactionary, for example. But by intentionally dumping out what's in that container, we've got space for new things that come in.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it. And doing that intentionally and every single day, because we take in so much. Willow, what is we're having so much fun in this conversation. Tell me about what are your wins and challenges?
Yeah, I was just before I come in, the final thing I'll just say about this this overwhelm piece is I think our minds, especially as HSPs, that great saying where our minds are a great, like fire is a great servant but a bad master, and like our minds are a great servant but a bad master. So I think when we get really overwhelmed, there's that monkey mind analogy. I think when we're aligned and we've got things together, we can keep control of this amazing processing ability that we have. But I think when we exhaust ourselves and we go into burnout, we actually lose control of that processing ability, and it just runs riot. And it thinks of all the bad things that could go wrong, all the kind of things that didn't matter just now really matter. And then before we know it, we've just got this wild mind of our animal mind unleashed, and I think we've got to stop it before it does that, because that's that's a painful place to be. Anyway, yes. So
you're saying that with a sense of knowing.
Yeah, it's exactly how it feels if I let that happen. If I get too tired, I lose control of the ability to process. There's no reins on it. So then and that's a very painful place to be. So there we are. Yes, my challenge. So I've been tuning in today around this. It's not so much a necessarily a current challenge, as in something that I can put my finger on. But one thing that I've really been thinking about recently is the process of, or the reality of being in business as an HSP, and not just being in business, but being in pursuit of purpose and wanting to really listen to my heart and really do what my heart really wants to do. And the challenge of actually pursuing and honoring that, and how it is always like it's like a beautiful double-edged sword of really honoring the truth of wanting to be the best I can and be as true to my own heart as I can, but also the challenge of actually living and being that. And especially in business, there's nothing more. I don't think there's anything that accelerates our personal growth more than being in business, because we have to address things, we have to overcome things, we have to find out what's in the way, we have to find out where we're not being real in order to make sure that we are, running in alignment in order for everything to work properly. So recently I think I've been tuning into this, this commitment to this truth and this purpose, and acknowledging. I was actually watching a video of myself that I made 10 years ago, where I was just driving along and I had an old GoPro attached to the dashboard, and I was just like stream of consciousness talking about plans that I had and ideas for business. I was literally watching this, and I just could not believe the person that I was watching. I felt like two entirely different people, such a vast difference in where I feel I've come over the last 10 years. And I think it's, it's really, I guess what I'm leading towards is, acknowledging the importance of pursuing what we care about and doing what really matters, and having the courage, I think, to do what needs to be done and to embrace change, to let go of what's not serving us, in the awareness that it's really the greatest work, I believe, and the greatest gift that we can give ourselves, but to do that. And to, that if I speak for myself, the challenges that I have to go through to honor that, yeah, they're hard, the hardest work I think that we can do, but I think it's the most important work that we can do ultimately.
Yeah. Aligning, right?
Yeah. 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 It just feels like, it just feels so important. And some of the conversations that you and I've had recently, where again, you're so good at getting these pieces out of me, but also, it's also, actually really owning and being honest about what truly matters. I'm aware that, when I was younger, I used to have really big energy experiences, and my feelings would merge with colors and sounds, and I would have this, full on amazing kind of immersive experience as a child. There's no way I could talk to anyone about that, you know. For starters is going to believe that, and what do I even say that really means? And as a child, when I can remember that happening, when I used to stand on the lawn and just be in this, just kind of like just communing with God, just talking, and how everything just really made sense for me. And I know, God's not the right word for everyone, but it was, it was the natural world and just the experience of nature around me, and being a part of something. And I just knew that there was this cause in me, that I was a part of that I was here to support this cause that I could feel moving around in the plants and just through the air, and there was this buzzing purpose in nature. And that, it hasn't been easy talking about that really through my life, and actually being honest about how much it means to me to support that, and to do what I can to help the good in the world. It's such a big part of me. You can hear my voice wavering, to to help the world be the best it can in my own little way is so important to me. And it isn't easy. Well, it hasn't been easy for me to really own just how spiritual that is, and how kind of ethereal it sounds when I talk about my experience energetically. But the fact of the matter is, it's happening, and it's a huge part of who I am, and it's the part that I really want to encourage in HSPs. That relationship we have with nature, and the fact that we can see more than physical world around us, and that cause that's in our hearts. And I'm not sure what more to say about that, but just the fact that, yeah, I really care about that, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to honor that and allow it to take me wherever it's going to take me.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful work that you do. I think about well, we need more sensitive people, neurodivergent people stepping into leadership roles. We need them stepping into their light. And you help them do that. I mean, you help people step into those places to give a space where they can explore those things that you're talking about, and bring that out into the light for others. So it's like that's a beautiful ripple effect that gets created when people get to work with you. So that's a beautiful thing. Good work, Willow. You're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful to hear. Yeah, thank you. And I guess, if there's a message really in what I'm saying, it's that that there is such reward in pursuing what really matters to us and what we really care about. And no matter how hard it is, and no matter how much we have to face within ourselves, I think it does affect. I know that it affects our health and well-being if we are in rejection of what we really care about, and we're not pursuing what really matters to us, and we're in that fear and that repression of self. It does make us ill. That's, I believe, where, as the word dis-ease comes from, is when we are in that place of imbalance. And I think, for everyone listening out there, it's to encourage everyone to recognize that there's a plan for us internally. We are unique. We have a completely unique set of circumstances, and there will only ever be one of us in the world, and life will hold us to face and come through whatever it is that we're challenged by, whatever the relationship is that we're struggling with, the change in our business or career that we've got to make, or taking that trip and traveling, or moving house, whatever it is, to trust that we will be held through it, and that in the moment, courage mustereth in the moment, as Shakespeare says. We just have to take that little faith and know that we're much stronger and more resilient than we realize.
Especially if we're living authentically as ourselves.
Right.
It makes us stronger, actually, when we do that. And you're so good at helping people do that, to sharing your own journey and the way that you work with people. Such a beautiful thing. Oh, I love it. Let's talk about, let's go into if anybody that's live with us wants to ask a question or have us read out a comment, we could do that. I was thinking too, Willow, what you were saying about, you said something about, I got that out of you. And sometimes I think about that funny conversation we have where I was, because that is part of my gift, is when I'm working with somebody. We were not working together. It was a personal thing, but I guess I shouldn't even say working with. When I'm talking to someone, I do have this ability to know where to go inside of them.
Yeah.
And
it's a superpower. It's amazing, the ability you have to do that.
I remember you were almost surprised. You were like, wait a minute, I don't usually let people go to that area.
Yes. How did you get in there?
How'd you get there?
Yeah. That's really clever how you do that.
Yeah, it's always been my gift. One of the things I love doing, I really do enjoy client work too, because getting to do that. So it's always such a beautiful experience.
Yeah, and can I just add to that, actually, the way that you do that is it's such an incredibly safe space that you create to do that. There's no kind of it's such a loving, caring process that you use. And when I do find myself in those places, it feels like a really natural place that I need to be there, and it's really helpful that I'm there. But it's a very, the ability that you have to facilitate that is incredibly caring and loving, but that's part of the gift. So, anyone that's listening and thinking, whoa, that sounds a bit scary. It isn't scary. It's actually incredibly helpful and healing. But yeah, the way you do that is masterful.
Oh, thank you for sharing that safe piece. That is important, because it should feel good and natural. And I'm really glad that I get to do that with people. So thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Yeah. Anything that you saw in the chat you want to read? And for anybody that wants to work with me, I am offering one-on-one sessions. So you can go to my website, sensitiveconnection.com. In everything we've talked about, whether it's the autism quiz you want to take, that's a free quiz. I have a ton of free stuff on my website. And I really do love working with clients. We can do video or phone. And that's a lot of fun. So that's an option. And Willow, tell me too, feel free to share what you are see, we've got Tiffany says, Julie, it's really important to allow yourself to bring it down to around 75%. Oh, we're talking about the bucket, because doing your best is asking too much of us as neurodivergent people. We come at things 125%. This is advice is from my therapist, and I'm still working on it. Yeah, bringing it down. I would say like a goal being like even less than 75%, because we have so many stressors that come into our bucket. So the more we can keep on emptying that out, and some of that is through being in supportive spaces like our community, talking to supportive people, journaling, doing the processing I was talking about, where you're intentionally letting yourself process all the things that are in that bucket to release them. I was actually interviewed recently from Fortune magazine, and that's going to be coming out an article soon about, we were talking about that sense of rumination, like how rumination happens, how to stop rumination, what's happening when it is. So it's like, that's going to be a good article.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, that's very exciting. Yes, I think, it's there's, I mean, I've said this many times, but there's an amazing quote by, is it Mark Twain, that said some of the worst things in my life never actually happened.
Yeah, I love that one.
And they say that 85% of what humans worry about doesn't happen. And actually, the times in my life where I really get this joy piece and just hold that place of joy, kind of no matter what's going on, just like, yeah, it's okay, I'm going to work it out, I'm going to get through it. Amazing things happen. I find that just great stuff just happens. Whereas versus where I'm worrying about whether great stuff is going to happen, we just kind of hold it away. I think it's almost like a paradox.
That is so true. Wow, that's so true. Jen says, it's so easy to get overwhelmed with all the hard things. I appreciate the reminder to find some joy, even when it's just a little bit. Yeah, it's a good reminder for us, because it's a lot of people have said that to me. It's like, how can you even like get anything accomplished in the world when there's so many hard things happening, when so many people are suffering? And I say, it's like, first of all, we have to take care of ourselves in unique ways, which we've talked about on the first season a lot, 200 episodes of, and also doing what you can. So like, I feel like I'm doing something by creating this, by having our sensitive empowerment community. We have a safe nest, a loving, supportive place of belonging. And so I know I'm doing something. And every client I work with, or anybody that takes one of my courses, like, I know I'm doing something to help. So I think, no, we can't do everything, but we can do something. And I think that's a good part for us to understand, but we also have to take care of ourselves in special ways to be able to do those things.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my goodness. Yes.
Willow, tell us,
Yeah.
how can people find you and work with you and do what you're doing?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so you can find my links under the podcast episode. You can head to inluminance.com, although that word's not quite clear to hear. So you can go to highsensoryintelligence.com and you can book a call with me. I absolutely love having calls with HSPs that want to reach out to me. You don't have to have anything impressive to say. You don't have to prepare for it. As long as you're present and you're committed to owning who you are and bringing your gifts and wonderful self into the world that serves you and serves others, then I am all ears. I just want to help, and I want to hear, and I want to reflect, and I want to help you to be seen. So you're most welcome to do that. You can just jump onto my calendar and book a time to speak. There's no obligation to have to buy anything. We can just have a chat. I can tell you about the things I do, the ways that I can support you, the programs that we have. But if you just want to come on and just speak to me, it is my pleasure to do that.
Yeah, you're a great guide for people, and it is never too late to do something different in your life. Like, doesn't matter if you went to school for something, if you're not happy doing it, and you've always had this little, like, I know a lot of people that work with you are like, oh, I've always had this dream I wanted to do, but nobody in my life is supporting it, or maybe it's just too out there or something. Like they think those kinds of things. And I think like having a guide who's supportive of what is authentically inside of you, what you're, the light that you're meant to bring to the world, I think is so invaluable. So definitely reach out to Willow to get that kind of support, because that's the thing. Sometimes it's just one person. It takes one person sometimes to affirm us, to validate us, to feel like we can accomplish something. That's such a powerful thing. Gracie says, yeah, any last things you guys want to say? Grace says, such powerful work you're both doing. Deep gratitude for your beautiful shares today, Julie and Willow. Thank you, Gracie.
Oh,
I love
thank you,
that you're
Gracie.
here. Oh.
Yeah.
And Gracie hosts our meet and greets in the community 3 times a month, which is such a great way to connect. So yeah, you can find everything that we're talking about on the podcast. That's also on my website. Just go to sensitivecommunity.com if you want to join the community, and sensitiveconnection.com if you want to see everything that we're talking about. And yeah, thanks for being with us, everybody. And Willow, it was so lovely to have time with you.
Yes, and you too, as ever. Thank you, everyone, for being on with us live, and everyone who's tuning into the podcast. It's so wonderful to have your feedback and your questions. It really it really makes it a great journey for us to know that you're all along with us.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, we love hearing from you. And please rate and review the podcast. That helps others find us, and helps, helps people to feel like we can understand each other. And anything else, Willow?
Yeah, I think we've journeyed wonderfully through some great arenas, I think, and what a joy it's been.
I'm excited, and please share the podcast with others, and let us know what resonated, what questions you have, what do you want us to talk about. Join me Thursday for Thursdays with Julie inside of our community, the Sensitive Empowerment Community. So hope to see you there. Sending out lots of love to you all. Please take good care of your beautiful, sensitive self. Until next week, we'll see you then. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Bye.